part of your whole attack against wokeness, it seems to me, comedians like you, our guy, Shane Gillis, you guys are attacking wokeness. Is wokeness in comedy on its last legs?
Well, I think it has to be. It has to be close to collapse, as my good friend James Lindsay said. It's about 12, 18 months before it collapses.
It's coming from a place of, it's an intolerance, but it's dressed up as manners.
Rob Schneider has openly criticized Hollywood's push for political correctness, saying it's stifling creativity and silencing comedians. As a seasoned comedian and actor, Schneider's strong words have stirred up debates and put him in the spotlight of a growing conflict in the entertainment world. Hollywood is still reeling from his blunt remarks, setting the stage for more drama as we watch the fallout. This could change how movies and shows are made, highlighting the real impact when people are too afraid to speak their minds.
In 1975, there were 40 comedians, and 8 of them were good. 85, there were 4,000 comedians, and 8 of them were good.
And I think it's true.
He told me.
The fear factor. During a revealing interview on Newsmax, Schneider shared his frustrations with the way Hollywood limits what comedians can say. He told stories about other entertainers who agree with him but are too scared to speak up because they fear it could harm their careers or make them unpopular. Schneider, however, is not holding back. He's openly criticizing those who stay quiet and urging them to be more courageous. As tensions rise, we're set to see who else will step forward in this fight for the freedom to create without restrictions. But Schneider hasn't just spoken out. He's shown his discontent through his actions as well. For instance, at a holiday gathering organized by a Senate working group, his performance was cut short after he made jokes that touched on sensitive cultural topics. These jokes, which involve stereotypes and cultural habits, didn't go over well with the mostly conservative audience. One senator even walked out, calling Schneider's set inappropriate and offensive. This wasn't the only time Schneider's comedy clashed with audience expectations. At a charity event in Canada meant to raise money for a hospital, his routine, which included jokes on political and social issues, was abruptly stopped. The organizers later apologized, saying that Schneider's performance didn't align with their values, and escorted him out of the event. Despite these challenges, Schneider remains firm in his beliefs. He argues that his comedy speaks to truths that may be uncomfortable but are important to talk about. He continues to use his platform to reach a large audience on social media, where he shares his opinions on various political and social matters. His posts often draw a lot of attention, with both supporters and critics weighing in. But this isn't the worst part. Schneider's unwavering stance has turned him into a symbol for a growing group of comedians who are pushing back against the constraints of political correctness. These comedians believe that comedy shouldn't avoid controversial or thought-provoking topics. They argue that comedy should challenge societal norms and make people think, rather than just sticking to what's considered safe or acceptable. Schneider's struggle is part of a bigger debate happening in the worlds of entertainment, media, and beyond. It's a debate about where to draw the line between humor, freedom of expression, and sensitivity. As this discussion continues, Schneider's words and actions keep fueling conversations about the role of comedy in society and the limits of free speech in a rapidly changing world. His journey highlights a key moment in the comedy world where there's a delicate balance between making people laugh and being respectful. However, it's important to note that while Schneider's methods might divide opinions, his dedication to his craft and his belief in what he sees as the true nature of comedy, pushing boundaries and encouraging reflection, are clear. Every time Rob Schneider steps onto the stage with a bold joke or comment, he's making a statement. The show must go on, even if some people disagree. This determination is his response to a growing culture that often demands everyone to think and act the same way, showing little patience for different opinions. This is the backdrop for Schneider's confrontations with what he sees as an over-the-top focus on being politically correct, putting him in the middle of many heated debates. Rob Schneider isn't afraid to challenge today's popular left-leaning ideas, sometimes comparing them to rigid beliefs. His ability to adapt and change his views as society shifts is a lot like his famous line, "You can do it." This flexibility highlights his point that some values, once shared by many, are now seen as political tools. Schneider finds it strange that, in today's politics, standing up for basic rights and free speech can suddenly make you seem like a conservative. A recent example of this came when a well-known airline executive said their hiring would focus more on diversity than experience. Schneider reacted with disbelief, questioning why diversity would be prioritized over proven skill. His straightforward commentary also touches on the ongoing discussion about gender identity. He has expressed doubt about the growing number of gender labels, joking that if he were paid for each one, he wouldn't make much money. These blunt opinions have struck a chord with many people who are also confused by what they see as too much political correctness. Rob Schneider's journey from a comedic actor and writer on Saturday Night Live to someone who comments on society's rules is interesting. He was known for his roles in popular films and appearances at events like the Golden Raspberry Awards, but now he's more recognized for speaking out against political correctness, which has changed how the public sees him. But this wasn't the worst part. Schneider's outspokenness has earned him both praise for his bravery and criticism for crossing the line. Back in 2014, he was dropped from a State Farm ad campaign because he publicly opposed vaccines. This stance hurt him professionally, but it didn't stop him from continuing to share his views on political and social issues on various platforms. Schneider's persistence, even when facing setbacks, is worth noting. He keeps pushing the limits of what's acceptable in comedy and commentary in Hollywood. This defiance has led to mixed reactions. Some admire his courage to speak freely, while others think he has gone too far, especially considering the recent scandals involving people like Harvey Weinstein. Schneider's comments on controversial comedy specials by other comedians like Dave Chappelle, which have sparked debates about what's acceptable in humor, show just how tense the environment is for comedians today. But the story doesn't end there. The growing pressure to fit into a progressive agenda is causing a serious conflict in the comedy world. Any comedian who steps outside the accepted views on race, gender, or sexuality risks facing serious backlash. Yet, Schneider remains steadfast. His strong stance is a reminder of the importance of keeping comedy true to its roots, provoking thought and challenging the status quo. As Rob Schneider continues to speak out against what he sees as the restrictive nature of today's culture, he stresses the need to protect a kind of comedy that dares to push boundaries. This battle isn't just about keeping certain jokes alive, it's about defending the very heart of artistic expression. The ongoing debate about where comedy should go in a world that's increasingly sensitive presents a big challenge. Will comedians give in to the pressure, or will they keep using humor as a way to reflect on and critique society? Schneider's journey through these challenging times shows how difficult it has become for comedians to express themselves freely. The rise of cancel culture has made it harder than ever for comedians to speak their minds. As Rob Schneider questions society's limits on humor, let's turn to Ben Shapiro, who takes on these debates from another perspective, the Shapiro perspective. In recent years, the topic of gender identity has sparked intense debates in many places, from university halls to live TV shows. One person who often finds himself at the center of these discussions is Ben Shapiro, a well-known conservative commentator and lawyer. Shapiro is known for his firm and clear arguments, especially when it comes to gender and political correctness. He doesn't shy away from sharing his views, even when they are controversial. One such debate happened at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where Shapiro engaged with a student who argued that gender identity is not strictly tied to biological sex, but is more of a social idea. Shapiro, who is skilled in debate, quickly responded by pointing out what he saw as flaws in the argument. He emphasized that in the vast majority of cases, gender matches biological sex, which he sees as a basic part of human biology and history. For Shapiro, this connection between gender and biology is fundamental and has always been a key aspect of how humans understand reproduction and society. But Shapiro doesn't just debate students. He's also had high-profile debates on national TV, where his views have stirred both controversy and support. One such incident was on the show, Dr. Drew on Call, where Shapiro debated transgender activist Zoe Tour. The discussion quickly became tense, with Tour threatening Shapiro after he stuck to his belief that gender should be defined biologically. This confrontation brought the debate into the mainstream, showing how heated and sensitive the topic of gender can be when it intersects with free speech and politics. But this wasn't the only time Shapiro faced strong reactions. Shapiro argues that viewing gender as entirely flexible and socially constructed challenges the clear biological distinctions that have been recognized throughout history. He believes that such views can undermine the scientific understanding of gender. Shapiro's stance is that acknowledging biological reality is not about being disrespectful, but about being accurate. This has led to accusations of insensitivity, but also praise from those who agree with his commitment to sticking to the facts. Shapiro often discusses what he sees as the dangers of adopting a broad definition of gender identity. He argues that it could lead to confusion and weaken the clarity that biological distinctions provide. His debates are known for their sharp language, which he uses to argue for a more reasoned and scientifically grounded understanding of gender. Shapiro insists that discussions about gender should stay rooted in scientific facts, even if these facts aren't popular in today's social and political climate. But this wasn't the end of the controversy. Shapiro's perspective on gender goes beyond just debates. He talks about these issues on many media platforms, blending his legal knowledge with conservative ideas. He often highlights the tension between progressive movements that push for a more inclusive definition of gender and those who believe in a traditional biology-based understanding. This ongoing discussion reflects a broader cultural and political debate about truth, science, and freedom of speech. Shapiro's confrontational style and his refusal to go along with popular opinion have made him a polarizing figure. Some people admire him for his clarity and bravery in defending his views, even when they go against modern progressive ideas. Shapiro has made it clear that he believes society should not be forced to accept identity claims that go against established biological facts. This viewpoint has sparked strong reactions, especially during his visit to UC Berkeley, where his presence led to significant protests. Some on the left have even labeled Shapiro as part of the alt-right, a claim he strongly rejects. He sees this label as a sign of how loosely these terms are used in today's political discussions. The event at Berkeley needed a large police presence to keep things calm, showing just how divided people are about Shapiro's views. During a question and answer session, a student challenged Shapiro about his refusal to use preferred gender pronouns. Shapiro responded firmly, saying that teaching children to use these pronouns or to believe that gender is fluid is both scientifically incorrect and socially harmful. He argued that while people have the right to choose their identities, they shouldn't force others to use language that reflects those choices if it goes against biological facts. But this wasn't the only moment of tension. This exchange played a key role in the broader discussion about free speech and the rights of transgender individuals. Shapiro insisted that freedom of speech shouldn't be limited by demands to follow certain ideological rules about language. The debates continued at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where Shapiro gave a talk titled, "Men Cannot Be Women." In this event, a student accused Shapiro of using outdated science. The student mentioned the DSM-5, which talks about gender dysphoria, a term Shapiro used to argue against mixing up feelings of gender with biological sex. Shapiro responded by questioning the student's reliance on what he sees as a narrow and modern understanding of gender. He pointed to various cultures that recognize more than two genders to show that binary views on gender are not the only perspective out there. But this wasn't the last word on the subject. These conversations show Shapiro's careful approach to debates, where he focuses on biological definitions and the historical consistency of how sex and gender are understood. Another heated moment came during a discussion about medical treatments for transgender youth, like puberty blockers. A college student asked Shapiro about the ethics of supporting circumcision while opposing puberty blockers. Shapiro distinguished between the two by citing personal and religious reasons for circumcision and stressing the serious, life-changing nature of transitioning treatments for children. At Ferris State University, another intense debate took place about whether gender is just a social idea. Shapiro argued against the belief that gender is simply something society imposes on people. He insisted that there is a deep connection between biological sex and gender, challenging the audience to define woman without using circular definitions. But this wasn't the most challenging part of his argument. Through these debates, Shapiro doesn't just talk about the specific issues at hand. He also touches on broader themes, like protecting Western values, the importance of free speech, and how changes in society's views on gender and sex could affect our understanding of science and human identity. He believes that the push to redefine gender and sex reflects larger cultural and political changes that could weaken scientific clarity and societal norms. Shapiro's debates aren't just academic discussions. They are also public statements of his belief in certain truths, such as the biological differences between sexes and the dangers of blurring these lines. His confrontations often turn into teaching moments for the audience, whether they agree with him or not, showing his skill in debate and his role in the ongoing cultural conversation about identity, science, and free speech. After Shapiro's debates, we move to Sylvester Stallone, who also challenges how Hollywood is changing. Action meets activism. Sylvester Stallone, the famous action star and filmmaker, has been very open about his dissatisfaction with the way Hollywood is changing, especially with what some call woke culture. Over the years, the entertainment industry has shifted a lot, especially in how it portrays gender, lifestyles, and the language used in movies. Recently, Stallone has been in the news for speaking out against these changes, expressing frustration with what he sees as an overly sensitive approach to making movies and dealing with social issues. Stallone's viewpoint comes from his long experience in an industry that used to value raw storytelling and unfiltered creativity. According to people close to him, including those who have worked on his films, Stallone strongly opposes efforts to include what he dismisses as woke nonsense in his projects. He has been very clear about wanting to keep the integrity of his films intact, refusing to let what he sees as too much political correctness control the content of his work. His straightforward critiques don't just target Hollywood trends, he also calls out specific groups, showing how unhappy he is with the direction society seems to be going. But this isn't just about movies for Stallone. He believes these cultural shifts are hurting the quality and authenticity of modern cinema. He argues that the focus on political correctness not only stifles creativity, but also weakens the storytelling power of films, making them less impactful. Stallone sees these changes as moving away from the traditional values of filmmaking, which prioritize artistic expression over trying to please everyone. One of Stallone's biggest concerns is the focus on pronouns and identity, which he thinks is part of a larger problem, an obsession with labels that he feels is unnecessary and harmful. He believes this is part of a bigger disease affecting Hollywood, one that undermines the boldness and authenticity that great films should have. By speaking out against these trends, Stallone places himself in a unique position in Hollywood, similar to other industry figures who have faced backlash for their unpopular opinions. But this wasn't the worst part. Hollywood's response to voices that go against the norm offers an interesting backdrop to Stallone's stance. Other stars like Mel Gibson and Matthew McConaughey, who have also voiced views that challenge the industry's norms, have faced various levels of criticism and exclusion. Gibson, despite his major contributions to film, found himself pushed to the side after controversial incidents and outspoken personal views, especially regarding his Christian faith. McConaughey, known for his charming and easygoing persona, has also faced some criticism for his outspoken Christian beliefs, though not as much as Gibson. These examples show a broader pattern in Hollywood, a tendency to push for conformity to current cultural and political norms, often at the cost of personal expression and artistic freedom. Stallone's critique of woke culture is part of a bigger debate about balancing cultural sensitivity with artistic freedom. This debate raises important questions about where to draw the line in creative industries. In standing up against the current cultural trends in Hollywood, Stallone isn't just defending his way of making movies. He's also calling for a return to a more fearless form of storytelling. He argues for a kind of filmmaking that doesn't shy away from tough topics or avoid controversy, promoting a kind of artistic bravery that he feels is becoming rare in today's movies. But this wasn't the last of his concerns. Stallone's stand is a challenge to his peers and the public to think about how current cultural trends are affecting artistic expression. It's a reminder that while society is changing, the heart of storytelling and filmmaking shouldn't be lost. Should Hollywood enforce conformity or embrace diverse voices? Share your thoughts, like, comment, and subscribe for more discussions on this controversial topic.